Hi everyone, it's me, Mrs. Swingers, and we are back for another strategy in order to draft for our narrative writing unit. Did all of those sentences make sense? I don't really know. You chose this lesson because you are drafting, right? And so this is a strategy for drafting that I'm going to teach you today. It's a pretty simple one. And it totally makes sense, but some people just don't spend the time to do it, right? So today our strategy is just in order to start drafting, you'll want to practice saying the story out loud, okay? So if you say it out loud, then it will get your brain ready to get it down onto the paper, okay? But so many people skip that step and they just go straight to their paper and then try to, write this long story without actually practicing it first. So this is like, rehearsing the story before you write the sentences down. So there's two ways you can do this. One is just tell it out. Maybe there's more than two ways. You could just say it out loud, right? You could just kind of think, sit, look up at the ceiling, and tell your story. You might look in the mirror as you tell this story, right? And you can maybe see which parts of the story sound really exciting and make you smile and make you happy, because that telling stories is a happy thing to do. You could tell a parent or a sibling or a friend, right? You could do a video chat with someone and just tell them the story. That would be a better thing than just doing it on your own, because that person might ask questions, which would get you thinking about more details, okay? And then something else you could do is actually record yourself telling the story. So using the voice recorder on an iPad, or you could borrow your parents' phone if they have one, and just use the voice recorder to tell your story. That way, not only are you practicing getting the story out, but then you can re-listen to it, or not re-listen to it, just listen to it when you are ready to start writing it. Okay, so I'm going to get my blank paper. Today I'm working on the middle part of my story about Atlas finding crabs. So in this middle part, we couldn't find any crabs, and then the solution is we turned over big rocks. So I don't have any people here. But I am going to use my voice recorder. So on an iPhone or a iPad, I think these are on iPads. I guess I'm not totally sure. It's called Voice Memos. Pretty simple. So I'm just going to start recording. Okay. In the middle of the story. We always find tons of crabs when we go to the beach. The tide is usually out, and they're so easy to find. We see them crawling around. But today, for some reason, we just couldn't seem to find any. And we were looking in all the usual places. We were turning over all the normal rocks, and there were no crabs to be found. So I think my kids were wondering, where did all the crabs go? And I was kind of thinking that also. So we flipped over rocks, and then we kind of thought, well, the tide is much farther out than it normally is, so maybe the crabs are closer to the water where it's more wet. So in our bare feet, we ventured out and took little step by little step, and we got closer to where the water met the rocks. And so under the rocks, it was pretty wet. And we found these big, huge honking rocks that took two hands. Archer and Atlas couldn't even do it, and they begged me, "Come on, Mom, flip the rocks." And so we tried one, and all of the crabs that are normally in the normal spots we look for, they must have all gone under this one rock, because I flipped it over and it must have been hundreds of crabs scattered. Oh man, there were so many. I've never seen so many crabs in my life. And we were all very happy. Okay. Okay, so that was a 1 minute and 48-second voice memo. You can listen back to it from the beginning.
In the middle of the story. We always find tons of crabs when we go to the beach. The tide is usually at no.
Okay, so I got it. Now what I'm going to do is take my drafting paper, which is loose paper, right, not in my notebook, and I'm just going to listen to this part by part. I'm going to like play, write it, and then hit pause, and then listen. Wait, play, listen, pause, write it. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I do that drafting. Okay, I know this lesson is getting quite long, so I just want to quickly read. Look at all this text I wrote. That was just under 2 minutes of talking produced this much text. So let me quickly read it. Usually when we go to the beach, we can find crabs very easily. We have a few normal places we look, and they are typically there, pinching their claws at us. Not today. For some reason, we just couldn't seem to find any. We looked in all of our normal places, but there were no crabs to be found. We wondered, where did all the crabs go? Then we noticed that the tide is much further out than it usually is. Maybe the crabs are closer out to the water. We ventured out in our bare feet, little step by little step. We got closer to where the rocks met the sea. The rocks there were much bigger than our normal rocks. Archer and Atlas told me to flip one over. It was so heavy it took 2 hands. Come on, Mom, they yelled. Flip. My jaw hit the floor. All of the crabs at the beach must have been under that rock, because as soon as I flipped it, hundreds of little crabs scurried away, scared by us big, giant humans. I've never seen so many crabs in my life. Okay, so there, I've drafted my middle by using the strategy of telling the story first, and I even recorded it so I could listen to it back, and then I wrote it. Okay, so try that today in your writing if that sounds good to you, and I will see you soon.